I'm about to show you why the standard medical advice of slathering moisturizing lotion on your dying feet and taking ever-increasing, mind-numbing doses of gabapentin and metformin to manage your blood sugar is actually allowing a biological fire to slowly amputate your toes from the inside out. I am going to show you exactly how aggressively shattering advanced glycation end products and violently unchoking your microcapillaries is the only scientifically valid way to reverse this catastrophic cellular decay. We are dealing with a monumental systemic failure of basic metabolic physics, and your lower extremities are literally rotting in your shoes while you wait for your doctor to write the next useless prescription. Stay with me. For the next 35 minutes, we are going to completely dismantle everything the medical establishment, your endocrinologist, and your podiatrist have told you about diabetic neuropathy, foot ulcers, and peripheral vascular collapse. We are going to dive incredibly deep into the hardcore, terrifying mechanics of how crystallized glucose physically shreds your endothelial glycocalyx, suffocates the myelin sheath of your peripheral nerves, and turns your vascular network into brittle biological concrete. By the end of this masterclass, you will know the exact 9 warning signs screaming from your feet, and you will have the aggressive, unyielding biological tools to flush the toxic sludge, rebuild your cellular pathways, and save your limbs. Comment below if your feet feel like they are wrapped in freezing, burning, invisible socks of barbed wire that keep you awake pacing the floor all night, or if you are terrified of losing a toe every time you clip your nails. Type glycation if you want the exact aggressive biological protocol to fix the root cause instead of suffering through another useless nerve-numbing prescription. Let me tell you about Henry. Henry was 68 years old, and he came to my clinic absolutely terrified. He was a type 2 diabetic who had been diligently, flawlessly following his endocrinologist's orders for over a decade. He took his high-dose metformin, he took his statin to protect his heart, and he swallowed massive doses of gabapentin every single night just to survive the relentless, screaming burning in his feet. He was the perfect, compliant patient. But 6 weeks ago, he found a deep, painless hole on the bottom of his right heel. It started as a callus, and then the tissue simply collapsed. His podiatrist scraped away the dead, necrotic skin, handed him a heavy, gut-destroying course of broad-spectrum antibiotics, and casually mentioned that if this Wagner grade 3 ulcer didn't close up soon, they would have to schedule a minor amputation of the heel and maybe 2 toes to save the leg. The clinic smelled of iodine and rotting tissue, and Henry was sent home to just wait and see. Henry was being aggressively gaslit by a medical system that treats the human body like a disposable machine with replaceable parts. His doctor was chemically masking the pain in his brain with gabapentin while doing absolutely nothing to stop the biological starvation happening in his foot. His doctor prescribed antibiotics, completely ignoring the basic laws of physics. Antibiotics travel through the bloodstream. If the blood vessels leading to the foot are completely choked off by concrete plaque and caramelized sugar, the antibiotics can never reach the bacteria. The bacteria just laugh, feast on the dead tissue, and multiply. His blood sugar wasn't just a high number on a lab printout, it was acting like microscopic shards of glass, tearing apart the capillary beds that were supposed to deliver oxygen and white blood cells to that wound. We immediately stopped the chemical masking. We threw the standard playbook in the garbage. We initiated an aggressive, multi-pronged protocol to forcefully dilate his peripheral arteries, resuscitated his starved mitochondria, and deployed massive doses of lipid-soluble antioxidants to rebuild his destroyed nerve sheaths. Within 5 weeks, that incurable, rotting ulcer completely sealed shut. New, highly vascularized pink tissue filled the hole. The vibrant color returned to his toes, and the agonizing burning vanished. He didn't lose his foot. He lost the biological straitjacket the medical establishment had trapped him in. To understand why Henry was rotting alive, and why your feet are desperately crying out for help right now, we have to look at the violent physics of hyperglycemia and the biochemical nightmare of the Maillard reaction. When your blood sugar remains chronically elevated, that glucose does not just harmlessly float around waiting to be used for energy. It acts as a highly reactive, corrosive chemical solvent. The glucose molecules aggressively bind to the structural proteins and lipids in your blood vessels, your nerves, and your connective tissue. This binding process is called glycation, and it creates advanced glycation end products, or AGEs. I want you to think about what happens when you take a raw, flexible, living piece of steak and drop it onto a searing hot grill. What happens? A chemical reaction occurs. The meat turns dark brown, it shrinks, it becomes tough, rigid, and caramelized. That exact same chemical reaction, the Maillard reaction, is happening inside your body at 98.6 degrees. You are literally caramelizing your blood vessels from the inside out. Your capillaries lose their youthful elasticity. The collagen and elastin proteins become heavily cross-linked. They transition from flexible, expanding rubber tubes into stiff, unyielding, brittle concrete pipes. At the exact same time, this thick, sugary blood sludge violently scrapes against the endothelial glycocalyx. We must talk about the glycocalyx. This is the delicate, microscopic, hair-like forest that coats the inside of every single blood vessel in your body. It is the ultimate cellular bouncer. It protects the artery wall, and crucially, it houses the enzymes that produce nitric oxide, the master gas that commands your blood vessels to dilate and open. When the caramelized sugar shards shear off this protective forest, your arteries lose their ability to produce nitric oxide. They enter a state of endothelial dysfunction. They slam shut and refuse to open, no matter how desperately your tissue screams for oxygen. This creates profound peripheral ischemia. It is complete cellular starvation, and while your blood vessels are choking to death, your nerves are suffocating. Your peripheral nerves, the wires that run all the way down your legs to the tips of your toes, are wrapped in a protective, fatty insulation called the myelin sheath, which is maintained by specialized Schwann cells. When your blood is saturated with glucose, it triggers an enzyme called aldose reductase. This enzyme takes that excess glucose and converts it into a sugar alcohol called sorbitol. Here is the catastrophe. Sorbitol gets trapped inside the nerve cells. It cannot easily escape. Because sorbitol is a highly osmotic molecule, it acts like a microscopic sponge. It violently sucks massive amounts of water from the surrounding tissue right into the nerve cell. The Schwann cells literally swell up like water balloons until the cell membrane ruptures and explodes. Your nerves are electrocuting themselves to death, short-circuiting in a microscopic swamp of toxic sugar water. This mechanical and chemical destruction produces 9 incredibly specific, terrifying warning signs in your feet. These are not signs of getting older. These are the sirens of a biological fire. If you have even one of these, you are in the danger zone. Sign number 1. The invisible barbed wire. This is the absolute hallmark of early diabetic peripheral neuropathy. You feel a relentless, agonizing, burning, tingling, or stabbing pain, particularly at night when the distraction of the day is gone. Your doctor tells you the nerves are misfiring and casually hands you a massive bottle of gabapentin or Lyrica. Let me be very clear about what gabapentin is. It is a chemical lobotomy for your pain receptors. It works by blocking the voltage-gated calcium channels in your central nervous system so your brain doesn't register the scream from your feet. It does absolutely zero to stop the sorbitol from exploding your Schwann cells. It does nothing to shatter the glycation. The nerve is still dying. The tissue is still suffocating. You are just chemically blindfolded while the fire burns down the house. Sign number 2. The silent void. This is the terrifying progression of the barbed wire. The burning suddenly stops, and it is replaced by complete dead numbness. You might think you are getting better because the agonizing pain is finally gone. This is a catastrophic, deadly illusion. The pain is gone because the nerve has officially died. The biological alarm system has been entirely severed through a process called Wallerian degeneration. The axon has withered away. Because you have no sensation, you can step on a rusty nail, a piece of glass, or a burning hot pavement, leave the wound untreated for 3 days, and never feel a single thing until systemic gangrene and sepsis hit your bloodstream. Sign number 3. The shiny, hairless desert. I want you to take off your socks right now and look at your shins, your ankles, and your toes. If the skin looks unnaturally shiny, stretched tight like a drum, and is completely devoid of hair, you are looking at severe late-stage capillary collapse. Hair follicles are incredibly highly metabolically active structures. They require a massive, uninterrupted, roaring tsunami of oxygenated blood just to survive. When the caramelization of your capillaries chokes off the microvascular blood supply, your body is forced to perform biological triage. The hypoxia-inducible factors in your cells trigger the death of the hair follicles to save the microscopic amount of remaining oxygen for the deeper muscle and bone tissue. Your leg is visibly turning into a suffocating, barren desert. Sign number 4. The anhydrotic fissures. We are talking about severe, brutally cracked heels. Deep canyons in the thick skin of your heel that sometimes bleed. You buy expensive, thick foot creams and slather them on every night, wrap your feet in socks, and wake up to find the cracks are still there. That is because this is not a cosmetic dry skin problem. This is autonomic neuropathy. Your autonomic nervous system controls the unconscious functions of your body, including the microscopic sweat and sebaceous glands in your feet. These glands secrete a perfectly balanced biological lipid sealant to keep the tissue supple and waterproof. When the sugar sludge kills the autonomic nerves, these glands shut down completely. The skin loses its structural integrity, dries out from the inside, and physically fractures under the mechanical weight of your body. These gaping canyons invite horrific bacterial infections, staph and strep, straight into your deep fascial layers. Sign number 5, the concrete toenails. These are thick, yellow, heavily ridged, crumbling toenails that look more like blocks of rotting wood than human keratin. Your podiatrist will glance at them, tell you it is just a stubborn fungal infection called onychomycosis, and try to give you a highly toxic, liver-destroying oral antifungal drug like terbinafine. But why is the fungus thriving so aggressively? Because fungus is an opportunist that feeds entirely on sugar. Your tissues are deeply saturated in glucose, and because your microvascular system is completely choked off by concrete plaque, your white blood cells, your biological infantry, cannot physically reach the nail bed to fight the fungal invader. The fungus has a limitless, sugary food supply and absolutely zero biological predators. It consumes the nail bed unopposed. Sign number 6, the freezing ice block. Your feet are perpetually, agonizingly freezing cold, even in the middle of summer, even under 3 thick wool blankets. You assume you just have bad circulation. No, you have a complete loss of thermoregulatory vasodilation. Your arteries have lost the endothelial nitric oxide synthase enzymes required to open the floodgates. When your brain tells your feet to warm up, the blood vessels physically cannot obey the command. The biological pipes are seized shut. Your toes are locked in a state of ischemic rigor mortis, starved of the warm, metabolic arterial blood that is supposed to regulate your temperature. Sign number 7, the unyielding callus. Calluses are a normal human adaptation to friction, but in a diabetic foot, they are a terrifying warning of biomechanical collapse. Because your sensory nerves are dead from the silent void, you lose your proprioception, the neurological ability to feel exactly how your foot is striking the ground when you walk. Because you can't feel your foot, your gait changes. You start walking improperly, shifting massive, unnatural amounts of weight and shear stress onto the wrong metatarsal bones. The body panics and tries to protect the bone by rapidly building a thick, unyielding pad of hyperkeratotic tissue. But if you do not address the mechanics, the extreme pressure underneath that hard callus will literally crush the healthy, soft tissue against the bone. The tissue liquefies from the inside out, creating a massive, tunneling ulcer that goes straight down to the bone. This leads directly to osteomyelitis, bone infection, and immediate amputation. Sign number 8, the pitting swamp. You press your thumb firmly into the top of your foot or around your ankle. Pull it away, and a deep pitting indentation remains in your flesh for minutes. This is severe peripheral edema. The caramelized sugar has physically ripped open the microscopic tight junctions of your capillary walls. The massive albumin proteins, which act as biological magnets to hold water inside your bloodstream, are leaking out of the torn capillaries and into the interstitial tissue of your foot. Water strictly follows protein. Your foot becomes a stagnant, toxic, swollen swamp of acidic metabolic waste. This extreme fluid pressure physically compresses the remaining healthy blood vessels, completely preventing fresh arterial oxygen from reaching the cells. The swamp literally drowns the healthy tissue. Sign number 9, the Charcot deformation. This is the absolute endgame. This is the final biological collapse. Your foot suddenly becomes red, hot, and massively swollen, but there is no cut and no external infection. What is happening is that the bones in your midfoot are literally microfracturing and collapsing in on themselves. The severe autonomic nerve damage has triggered a bizarre localized hyperactivation of your osteoclasts, the cells that tear down bone. Your body violently washes the calcium out of the bones in your foot. The structural integrity fails. Your arch collapses, the bones splinter, and the bottom of your foot pushes outward, turning into a deformed rocker bottom. Your foot is physically disintegrating into a bag of loose bones under your own body weight. You cannot fix a single one of these 9 catastrophic failures by simply managing your blood sugar with a pill that destroys your mitochondria or numbing the pain with a drug that chemically lobotomizes your brain. We must aggressively attack the biological caramelization, fiercely reconstruct the myelin sheath, and violently blow open the capillary side streets. Here is the exact, hardcore, non-negotiable biological masterclass protocol to rescue your feet from the fire. Step 1. The glycation shatter matrix. We must physically cleave the sugar crosslinks that have caramelized your nerves and your vascular tissue. You must deploy a massive, aggressive dose of benfotiamine. Do not let your doctor tell you to just take a standard vitamin B1 complex. Standard thiamine is water-soluble. It flushes straight through your kidneys and cannot penetrate the dense lipid tissue of your nerves. Benfotiamine is a highly specialized synthetic fat-soluble variant of thiamine. It aggressively forces its way deep into the lipid bilayer of your nerve cells. Once inside, it exponentially upregulates an enzyme called transcytolase. This biological machinery actively hunts down the sorbitol and the advanced glycation end products and physically shatters them. It routes the toxic sugar metabolites away from the destructive pathways and flushes the toxic fluid out of your exploding Schwann cells. You must pair this immediately with 600 milligrams of R-alpha lipoic acid. R-alpha is the ultimate master antioxidant because it operates in both lipid and aqueous environments. It plunges deep into the fatty nerve sheath and the watery cell interior to neutralize the raging oxidative fire caused by the rogue glucose. Step 2. The myelin reconstruction protocol. If you are taking metformin, you have been medically induced into a state of severe systemic vitamin B12 depletion. Metformin violently blocks the calcium-dependent absorption of B12 in your terminal ileum. B12 is the exact non-negotiable raw material your body uses to synthesize the myelin sheath around your nerves. By treating your diabetes with metformin, your doctor is chemically starving your nerves of their insulation. You must immediately begin a high-dose, sublingual methylcobalamin protocol. Absolutely not the cheap synthetic cyanocobalamin that forces your liver to detach a cyanide molecule just to use it. Methylcobalamin is the biologically active form. By taking it sublingually, it absorbs directly through the highly vascularized mucosal membranes under your tongue, completely bypassing the metformin blockade in your gut. It floods the peripheral nerves with the immediate raw material required to rebuild the severed wires. Step 3. The microvascular blowout. We have to force warm, oxygenated blood back into the shiny, freezing desert of your shins and toes. We must bypass the destroyed endothelial glycocalyx. You will consume a hyperconcentrated nitric oxide elixir exactly twice a day. You will mix 3,000 milligrams of pure L-citrulline with a heavy dose of concentrated beetroot extract and a pinch of organic cayenne pepper. L-arginine will not work because your aging diabetic body produces an enzyme called arginase that destroys L-arginine in the gut before it reaches your bloodstream. L-citrulline acts as a biological stealth bomber. It bypasses the gut enzymes, enters the bloodstream intact, and is converted into a massive payload of nitric oxide directly inside the endothelial cells. The beetroot provides dietary nitrates for a secondary vasodilation pathway. The cayenne pepper activates the TRPV1 thermal receptors, creating a violent localized thermal flush. This three-pronged chemical assault creates an explosive vasodilation, forcing the rigid, concrete capillaries to violently dilate and allow a roaring tsunami of oxygenated blood back into the starving tissue. Step 4. The endothelial sealant. We must drain the pitting swamp in your ankles by patching the gaping, ripped-open holes in your microcapillaries. You must deploy a highly concentrated micronized bioflavonoid fraction, specifically diosmin and hesperidin. These are aggressively potent botanical compounds derived from citrus rinds, but they must be in the micronized form to absorb into your blood. They act as profound chemical astringents on your venous walls. They physically snap the flabby, hyperpermeable capillary walls back into youthful tightness. This sealant locks the albumin proteins inside the bloodstream where they belong, allowing the biological vacuum of oncotic pressure to aggressively suck the toxic, stagnant fluid out of your foot tissue. Step 5. The Celea Siphon Protocol. You cannot sit in a recliner with your feet propped on a pillow and expect your feet to heal. Gravity and passivity will kill you. Blood flow and lymphatic drainage require massive mechanical kinetic energy. Every single hour that you are awake, you must stand up and perform 30 seconds of aggressive, explosive calf raises. You must violently contract the massive soleus muscle deep inside your lower leg. This muscle is your second heart. When you aggressively flex it, you create a massive mechanical vacuum that literally crushes the deep veins and lymphatic vessels. It forcefully siphons the stagnant, highly acidic sludge out of your feet, blasts it past the one-way valves, and pushes it back up to your liver for filtration. You are mechanically, aggressively pumping the swamp dry from the inside out. The medical system has told you that losing sensation, losing your balance, losing your mobility, and eventually losing your toes is just the unavoidable, tragic progression of your disease. That is a terrifying, highly profitable lie. You are not a decaying, broken machine. You are an infinitely complex biological ecosystem that is desperately fighting to survive a chemical drowning and structural starvation. Stop accepting the medical gaslighting. Stop chemically lobotomizing your pain receptors while your tissue dies. Stop waiting passively for the amputation clinic. Shatter the glycation. Rebuild the myelin sheath. Blow open the concrete capillaries. Drain the swamp. Flood your dying tissue with the life-saving tsunami of oxygen it is screaming for. I'm Dr. Amelia Carter. I'll see you in the next video.